إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونصلي ونسلم على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين اللهم صل وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما آمين. We give glory and adoration to Almighty Allah. We thank Him for all that He has done for us. We thank Him for the gift of life. We thank Him for making us one of those that are witnessing Ramadan of 1439. We ask that He chooses us to be one of those that will witness as many Ramadan as possible in our lifetime. Amen. Today we are discussing, like the topic suggests, the misconceptions that surround the immediate burial of Muslims. That's what we are discussing. So, before we go into that, the first thing we are going to look at is the sacredness of the human life. How sacred is a human life as far as Allah is concerned, as far as the Holy Quran is concerned, as far as Sharia is concerned. The human life is very sacred, and the Holy Quran has spoken about that a lot. By the Holy Quran, I mean Allah, the creator of the heavens and earth. Allah says, for example, in the Holy Quran, while talking about the sacredness of the human life, in the Holy Quran chapter 5 verse 32, that's Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah says that Man qatala nafsan bighairi nafsin. Whoever kills a soul, whoever ends somebody's life, bighairi nafsin, other than the fact that that person has committed murder, aw fasadin fil ardi, or that person is causing mischief on earth, the punishment of which is death. Which means there are only two reasons for which we can end the human life. Only two reasons. And those two reasons must be constitutional. They must be part of the rules and regulations that govern such a state or such a locality. So as far as the Holy Quran is concerned, two reasons for which we can end a human life, that means for which that person can be executed, is number one, if the person has committed murder. The punishment for murder is also murder. Like when you know that you will be killed if you kill somebody, that will stop you from killing somebody. Then the second reason for which a human life can be ended, by that I mean can be executed, as far as the Holy Quran is concerned, is if the person causes mischief on earth. That mischief will now be determined by the scholars, or let's say the Senate of that state or of that country or of that locality. They will now sit down and decide that, okay, in our own state, in our own country, in our own locality, if you do this, the punishment for that is death. If you do that, the punishment for this is death. So whatever it is that you have, that would have been agreed on in any state, by state I mean a sovereign state, that the punishment of that sin will be murder, then that also becomes the law. But the Holy Quran suggests that the greatness or the gravity of such a punishment should be that the person is causing mischief on earth. Now, the Holy Quran is now saying that if somebody has not committed murder and the person has not committed any crime for which his life will be executed as part of the constitution of that state, then such person's life must not be ended. We must not kill any soul if the person has not committed any of those two crimes. Now Allah now says that whoever kills a soul, whoever murders a soul, whoever ends a soul, it's like that person has killed the whole of the world. That is how sacred the Holy Quran treats the human life. That means your punishment for ending one person's life is like you have killed the whole of humanity. And we run into billions. So that is as far as Allah is concerned. Now, why Allah speaks of killing for this topic, I want to use the word ending, because this topic I have chosen is about ignorantly ending somebody's life, not intending to murder that person. So I'll be using the word ending rather than killing, because in this context, that is what it means. So whenever I use the word end, know that what I mean is to kill. But killing means that maybe it's done intentionally or whatever. But this ending means that you have ended that person's life ignorantly, unintentionally. But anyway, you have ended that person's life. And as far as law is concerned, whatever you do out of ignorance, the Lord will not bother about that. You will be punished. Ignorance is not an excuse as far as law is concerned. So as far as this topic is concerned now, we are talking about ending people's life ignorantly. So Allah is now saying that to end somebody's life is like ending the life of the whole of humanity. But Allah now says that وَمَنِ أَحْيَاهَا, but whoever saves a life, saves just one soul, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا, your reward will be like you have saved the whole of humanity. Which means Allah takes very seriously, very important, the protection of human life, the sanctity of human life, the inviolability of human life, the sacredness of human life. Going out of our ways, doing whatever it takes to ensure that you protect and save human life. So Allah now says that whoever does that, it's like you have saved the whole of the world. That is one part of the Holy Quran that speaks about the sacredness of human life. Now, the Holy Quran chapter 17 verse 33 also says that وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, do not end a life that Allah has made sacred. I've told you why I'm using the word end. I should be using the word because taqtulu means do not kill, it means do not murder. But in this context, for this topic that I have chosen, I am using the word to end people's life. So Allah says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, do not end a life that Allah has made sacred, إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, except for a just cause. What is the just cause? That has been explained in Holy Quran chapter 5 verse 32. The just cause has to be constitutional. It has to be legal. It has to be by law. So, for example, in Nigeria now, we have, reasons for which people can be executed in our constitution. So that's legal. As long as it is legal, that means it is justice. Then it can be done. If it is not justice, if it is not legal, if it is not constitutional, if it is not based on the constitution of such a sovereign state, then Allah has commanded us. It's a command on its own. It's a law by the lawgiver himself that we must not end a life or the life that he has made sacred. Now, in the Holy Quran chapter 6 verse 51, that is Surah Al-An'am, Allah says almost exactly the same thing he has said in the Holy Quran chapter 17 verse 33, saying that we should also not end human life that he has made sacred. Now, having said that, in Sharia, that is the Islamic law, we have what we call maqasid al-Sharia. Maqasid al-Sharia means the objective of Sharia. Why do we have to, run our life based on the tenets of Sharia? Now, these objectives of Sharia, they are all about three fundamental things. One of them is called Daruriyat. Daruriyat means necessities or essentials. The second one is called hajiyat. Hajiyat means our needs. The third one is, luxurious, things that are just luxury for us. They are not essential. We don't actually need them, but they are luxurious. They are just luxuries. In Arabic, it's called tahsiniyat. Those are the three things that the Sharia has come to address for our own benefits. Now, the first one, the daruriyat, the necessities, there are 5 of them. The first of them is that Sharia, one of the objectives of Sharia is to protect the religion of Islam. So the first essential that Sharia is concerned about is our faith, our religion, the religion of Islam. The second one is the human life. And they are arranged according to their degree of necessity, according to their degree of importance, according to their degree of significance, according to how important they are one over the other, how much significant they are, which means to protect the religion of Islam is more important than protecting the life of we human beings. Now, to protect the life of we human beings, that's the second one. The third one is now our intellect. That's the third one. The first one is wealth, our properties. And the last one is offspring, the next generation. Now, you can see that Islam is there for humans to practice. Humans cannot operate if our intellect is not protected. So which means we are useless without our intellect. Now, if we have our intellect, there's really nothing we can do if we do not have wealth, if we don't have money, properties, to carry out whatever it is that we want to carry out. Now, if the properties are there, if money is there, and we are here today, we are living, if we do not, prepare for the next generation that will continue with whatever it is that we will have started, then whatever it is we are doing now is useless. So they are in that category, in that order of importance. Imam Ghazali was one who added a sixth one. There are 5 of them. So every scholar agreed on those 5 as being the necessities that the Sharia must protect. Imam Ghazali added the 6th one, and he called it the human honor, the human dignity. Now, I don't want to stand up, because if I stand up, I will get too emotional. Now, having said that, now I need you to follow me from where I have started from to where I am going to, so you can reason along with me. So you can also take this to wherever you go to and ask them questions as well, so we all can find a way out of this. I'll give my own suggestions, but it will not end there. So now, our Sharia, the whole of the Quran, the whole of the Hadith, something is called Ijma' al-Sahaba. What the companions have come together to agree on, that is their consensus, is a law for us. That is part of our Sharia. Then what the scholars have come together to agree upon is also called Ijma'. So that is also law for us. There is something called Qiyas. Qiyas is using what has been legislated to bring about a law for what has not been legislated. That is Qiyas. That would also become law for us. Now, Ijtihad is a scholar using his own understanding of all of these things I have mentioned about to come to bring about a law on a particular issue that has not been discussed before, which means there is no legislation he could use to support his new opinion now, but he can then try to look for references as an inference to bring about a new law from his own end. Now, all of these things that I have mentioned, they have all been put together to protect the 5 things I have mentioned. To protect the religion of Islam, to protect the human life, to protect our intellect, to protect our wealth, and also to protect the next generation. And Imam Ghazali added the human dignity. That is the 6th one. Now, having said that, Let's now come to the hadith itself. The hadith we are here to discuss today. I have been able to explain how very sacred the human life is. And why, and Allah has also said that we must do whatever it takes to save the human life. I have quoted that from Holy Quran 5 verse 32. That if we save one life, it's like saving the whole of humanity. And I have also said that the whole of the Sharia has come to protect the human life and is number 2 in the list of what the Sharia has come to protect, the human life. The 6th one is the human dignity. Now, Muhammad Rasulullah said in his hadith, this hadith can be found in Sahih Bukhari. Now, when you mention Sahih Bukhari, and it's so that if you want to go and look for it, you know exactly where to find this reference. The Arabic version is different from the translated ones on the internet. If you want to search for this reference in the English, the translated copy of the Sahih Bukhari, the one on the internet, if you go on sahihbukhari.com, it will come, you will see it, they will bring it, it will come up. It is hadith number 401. It is on, Sahih Bukhari is volume 1 to 3. So if you go to volume 2, book 23, hadith 401, in the English copy, the translated copy. If it is the Arabic, you won't find it there. If you go to hadith 401 in the Arabic, you will not find it there. For the Arabic, it is hadith 1315. That is where you will find it. Now, what did Muhammad say about the burial of we Muslims? He says in Arabic, and I quote, he says, Asri'u al-jinaza, hasten the burial. Surya means to hasten up, to do something very quickly. Hasten the burial. Then Muhammad Rasulullah gives his own reason for hastening the burial. His reason was that he says that فَإِن تَكُنْ صَالِحَةً, if that jinaza, the deceased, if he were to be righteous, فَخَيْرٌ تُقَدِّمُونَهَا, you are actually putting that disease forward for enjoyment. And in another hadith, Muhammad Rasulullah said that disease will be looking forward to you guys placing it in the grave. And when you are about to die, you will say, yes, thank you for doing this for me. I'm going to enjoy myself. In another hadith. Then it says that if it is otherwise, that means if that disease is unrighteous, then you are putting off an evil thing down your leg. It means you are doing yourself a favor of letting go of an evil that might afflict all of you. That's Muhammad's reasons for asking us to do that. Now, in Islamic jurisprudence, that is al-fiqh, it's a journey of knowledge on its own. The reason the scholars have given for hastening up to bury the dead is sanitary issues. There are 2. Number 1 is the sanitary issue, and that is for our own benefits. So that when we hasten to bury the dead, it will not affect us health-wise. Now, how does it affect the dead? It protects their dignity, their honor. In what way? In those days, I don't want to talk about embalming and all of that thing, because Islamically those ones are not allowed. And there is nothing I can do about those ones, so I have to leave those ones. Let me just leave those ones. But in those days, there was no other way they knew of preserving the dead body and all of that. So if it is left for days, it becomes rotten. When it becomes rotten, and then you now want to bury the dead after it has gone rotten, then everybody will now have to be covering their nose and people will be running away from. In that way, it means we living have not protected the dignity of the dead. So, hastening up to bury the dead, for us, it helps us health-wise. We avoid sanitary issues when we do that. For the dead, it protects their dignity. Now, this is my question. Where does dignity lie in the essentials that Sharia has come to protect. Number, where does it lie? In the 5 necessities. Number 2. So it now means that to save that life takes precedence over protecting his dignity. I'm still talking Sharia. I have not gone out of whatever Muhammad Rasulullah has said. Don't worry, I am not going against that hadith. There is nothing I can do about that hadith. That hadith is there, it's a practice, I cannot run away from it. So whoever is thinking that maybe Ustaz Jami is going to say that hadith is not sound, or no, the hadith is sound. It's in Sahih Bukhari. There are over 7,000 hadiths in Sahih Bukhari, and they are all sound. None of them is not sound. All of them are sound. That is why I like to stick to Sahih Bukhari. So now, but what am I trying to, this is what I'm trying to explain. Muhammad Rasulullah in the hadith said that as the Yom Bil Jinaza, hasten up the burial. The question is that, what do we bury? That is the question. What has Muhammad Rasulullah asked us to hasten up to do? To hasten to do what? The burial. What do we bury? The deceased. What is the deceased, or who is the deceased? A dead person. How do we know somebody is dead? The person has to be certified by those whose job it is to certify that somebody is dead. So that means we need a death certification before we can say that this person is dead. Now, we have a peculiar issue, most especially where I live in Nigeria and in other developing countries and other developed countries. We have ignorantly understood Muhammad's instruction of hastening up or hastening to bury the dead. Now, what happens now is a direct opposite of Muhammad's instruction. What do we do now? This is what happens in Nigeria, because we are Muslims and we have been instructed to accept Allah's will. Whatever Allah does is fine, there's nothing you can do about it. So this is what happens. We are playing together. I'm playing with somebody right here, right now. Then the person drops down and the person becomes unconscious. What 90% of Nigerian Muslims do is that the moment that person has become unconscious, either it happens suddenly right there, or the person sleeps over the night, the person did not wake up again, or whatever it is that happens, and the person just becomes unconscious. Nigerian Muslims will just say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and they will prepare him for burial and they will bury him. That's what we do. That is not what Muhammad Rasulullah has instructed. That is a misunderstanding of his instructions. Muhammad Rasulullah said that we should hasten to bury the dead, not the unconscious. But we bury the unconscious, giving our own definition of whatever it is to mean that somebody is dead. As far as we are concerned, the person is unconscious, the person is dead. I'll give you instances. And I'll give you a lot of them. Before I go into all of that, let me make my point really very clear before somebody will start to misunderstand me. And I will keep on repeating that as I move on one by one. The point I am trying to make is this. In all of this, the protection of human life takes precedence over the burial of the dead. I will say that again. The protection of human life takes precedence over hastening to bury the dead. So this means that if somebody looks unconscious to us, right, it is an injunction Islamically for you and I to save that person. First, that is our first call. That is the second necessity, to protect that person's life. Not to accept that the person is gone. No! Protect that person's life. Save that person's life first. Then in the course of saving the person's life, when it now appears that the person is dead, that is when you now obey Muhammad's instruction of laying that person to rest immediately. Then before you go into that, you have to ascertain if that life can be saved first or not. Not accept the will that is not of Allah as a matter of fact, which is your own ignorance. You are supposed to save that person's life first. So in saving the person's life, where do you take the person to? You take the person to the hospital. When you take the person to the hospital, the doctor will certify the person dead, right? But what have we experienced in Nigeria when it comes to our medical doctors certifying people dead? Have we not experienced people certified dead and came back to life even after they have been certified dead? Haven't we experienced something like that? What I'm talking about is peculiar to, is a Nigerian situation, and wherever it happens all over the world. So I am saying in a nutshell that one doctor's certification is not enough for you to say that you have done your part to save that person's life. In Nigeria, it is not enough for you to get just from one medical doctor that this person is dead. It's not enough. Do as much as you can until you are sure and it is certain that this person is what? Dead. The language used in Sharia is the language used for hastening to bury the dead is idha bana mautuhu. Bana is a verb. The noun is known to most people. The noun is bayan. Bayan means what? To be clear, to be evident. So, what? Fuqaha, the scholars of fiqh, what they have said is that you hasten to bury the dead when his death is what? Evident. When it is clear. When it's not hidden anymore. That is when you must not stop at anything but bury immediately. But what has happened? Let me give you instances. I used to work somewhere. I don't want to mention that place, but some of you know the place I'm talking about, in Isolo. That place in Isolo, where I was for about 7 years. The house to the left of that place, that very house to the left. I'm very happy that some of you here now, you know what I'm talking about. There's a house to the left where bread is baked. The owner of that house is an imam, is an afar. So he's in the know of what is expected of how to bury the dead. His wife is just, a normal Muslim. It happened on this day. His youngest daughter, she was playing with everyone else. And while playing, suddenly she collapsed and she became unconscious. People shouted. Imam came outside. So Imam carried her, observed her, and remember that the Imam was not a medical doctor. As far as the Imam was concerned, she was dead. Because what the Imam considered as signs of death, he had seen it. And right there and then, he pronounced her dead. And he said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And he told people that, well, Allah has taken her away, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So, let's prepare her for burial. The mother was like, Alaj, well, that's what they call him. Alaj. So, what do you want to do? Alaj said, she was from Allah, and Allah has taken her back. There's nothing we can do, so we have to go and bury her. The mother said, my daughter, that was playing right now, she's dead, and he wants to go and bury her. She became very emotional, took her from Aladdin, as a matter of fact, snatched her away from him, ran to the hospital. She's still alive today. See, this is where I'm going to. So for those of you who have misunderstood me for so long, because I was very emotional in other places where I have discussed this is the point I'm trying to make. Save that life first. Before you conclude it is dead and is ready for immediate burial. Have you done anything to ensure that there is no life in that unconscious body you are thinking is dead? So now, if not for that woman's, emotional reaction to the fact that she didn't want to lose her daughter. I was in that place about 2 months ago when somebody died and we had to go and pray for that person. And she was the first person I saw. This girl was the first person I saw. I was telling myself that if not for your mother, you would have been buried alive. That's the point I'm making. So now, if that mother had not done that, what would have happened to Elijah? Elijah would believe that he was carrying out the instruction of Muhammad Rasulullah. But what would he have done, as a matter of fact? He would have ignorantly acted against the instruction of the Holy Quran of saving the human life. That is the point I am making. It's as simple as that. In fact, I should just tell everybody that, okay, I'm done, I'm not talking anymore. That's what I'm talking about. Just ensure that you save. I want to come up, in school, I'm a teacher. When we teach children and we get to the plenary, we try to come up with, something like a slang that they will say and they will remember the topic of the day. So the slang for this topic is save the life, don't end the life. Save the human life, don't end it. So Elijah was going to end that child. That child was not dead. It was Elijah who was going to end that child's life because he was not going to save that child's life. And why was he going to do that? It wasn't because he wanted to kill the child. No. It was because he had misunderstood. He had a misconception of Muhammad's instruction. And that's why I have called it the misconception that surround the immediate burial of Muslims. I will give you more than one instance. Now you realize it's a very big problem. That's one. Another one, on Sunday, this one is fresh in my memory, so that I will try to remember the rest of them. On Sunday, where I mentioned this issue, somebody was there. When I mentioned it, he said, that's very true. He said that a friend of his, somebody here was there, that's the person who never, I'm telling her, or I'm just trying to cook up a story for you to believe me. This guy said that, that's very true. He said that a friend of mine, it was in the morning. To them, he was unconscious. Then they took him to the hospital. The doctor at the hospital certified him dead. They were running around trying to get death certificates here and there. So while doing all of that, they got carried away. By the evening, he came back to life. At night, he came back to life. So now, in this case now, a doctor, a medical practitioner, had certified him dead. So which means we can say that, at least medically, they have gotten all whatever it was that they needed, the word is escaping me now.
Evidence.
All the evidence, thank you, that they needed to at least go by Muhammad's instruction. We can say that, right? But now, you see, what if, he had been pronounced dead by a medical doctor in the morning? And our fast has taught us that we should try and bury before the dead of the night. So which is normally that guy should have been buried. And he would have been buried alive. But he came back to life in the evening. So that is why I have said that one medical doctor's certification of that person's death in our own Nigeria here is not enough for you to go by Muhammad's instruction of hastening to bury the dead. Because there is an instruction that precedes this one of protecting, of saving living. That's life. That's number 2. Number 3. I took my car to the panel beater. So while he was working on the car, he was acting somehow, you know. Then I asked that, panel, what is wrong with you? He said, Ustaz, I'm just managing. I lost my daughter 3 days ago. I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I said, well, I'm so sorry to hear this. What happened to her? He said that, well, she was sick for some days. On that very morning, I went to the mosque for Salat Subuhi. I came back after Salat Subuhi, and she was dead. I said, really? She said, I said, so what did you do afterwards? He said, what was left? She was dead, so we had to bury her. So we just took her immediately. I brought her here. I called my friends that my daughter was dead, and they called, and our father came, we gathered money together. We prepared her, we washed her, and we buried her immediately. I said, did you take her to the hospital? He said, far. Hospital, Bawu. That was what he said. Why hospital? She was dead already. I said, how sure were you that she was actually dead? He said, far. Look, he won't be wasi. It means we were born in the village, so we know the difference between life and death. I know when I see a dead body and when I see the body that has life in it. My daughter was gone. We will get to the point where we will ask questions. So, my point, what he did wrong, I am not saying that burying the dead immediately is wrong. I have not said anything like that. What I am saying is that before you carry out Muhammad's instruction, there is an instruction that precedes that, which is to save the human life. He was supposed to take that child to the hospital. It is in the hospital that it will be ascertained if she was dead or not. So, if he had taken the child to the hospital, and if at the hospital, the daughter had been declared dead by the medical doctor, and given the experience, given what I just shared now, you should sample other people's opinion as well. I mean, other medical doctors' opinion as well. Then when it is certain that, okay, now she's dead, then there is no going back in what Muhammad has said. Then the person has to be buried immediately. This is just the point I'm making. I'm just giving instances of those who didn't do that. I'll give you another one. This was my aunt, my mom's younger sister. She was pronounced dead, certified dead by the medical doctors. She was prepared for burial. She had been taken to the graveyard. The grave had been dug. She was now about to be placed, to be buried, to be placed in the graveyard. My mother got emotional, ran to her, held her by her legs, and was doing all of those things that women do. Reasons why Muhammad said they shouldn't visit that place anyway. But in the case of Ronkena, it paid off. Held her by the leg. And she was saying all of those things that she was saying. Then when she was saying that, she now said that, these legs are not cold, oh. They are warm, oh. They are warm, oh. They are warm, oh. They are warm, oh. Ebami. She was rushed to the hospital. Bro, get that to speak. What would have happened on that day? She would have been buried. These are not cooked up stories. I am just saying that in Nigeria here, where we live, we Muslims, we are not obeying Muhammad's instructions properly. There is an instruction that precedes hastening to bury the dead, which is to save the human's life. the human life must be saved first. That is the point I am making here. I don't want to be misunderstood that I am campaigning. I cannot. I am just trying to, let us know that if we do not do it right, we will see we are obeying Muhammad. But we are actually going against the verse of the Holy Quran, Quran chapter 5, verse 32, which says that we should save the human life. Save the human life, don't end it. So, as long as it is evident that this person lying here is dead, my dear brothers and listeners, you have no other way out than to bury that person immediately. As long as it is evident, there is no other way out. In Nigeria, this is our own situation. So what do we do about it? Now, let me move away from there. That is one area. The area of ensuring that whoever is unconscious. I was chatting with a doctor, a medical doctor, whom I sent an invite to. And he sent me a video. The video was an elderly man. They were praying. During the course of the prayer, the elderly man collapsed to sujood. They were standing up. Then he collapsed to sujood. Everybody continued their prayer. Nobody bothered it was him until the prayer was over. When the prayer was over, they carried him. Then he became I'm avoiding to say that he was dead, because how would I know that he was dead when I'm not a medical doctor? So to them, he appeared dead. As far as I was concerned, he was unconscious. They prepared him for burial and they buried him. What was the first thing they were supposed to do? Take him to the hospital. As a matter of fact, what they were supposed to do, two of them were supposed to break off from their salat and attend to him. That was what Sharia says we should do. And doctor was telling me that at the time when that man broke down, that if two of them had done what I said Sharia said they would do, and they had lied him on his side, that he had a chance of surviving. That if the moment, it was a doctor who said it, if at that very moment when he collapsed, if two of them had broken off from their salat and they had lied him on his side, that Baba had a very good chance of surviving. So, which means that is the same thing I'm talking about. Saving the human life rather than ending the human life. So what they were supposed to do was to save his life, not end it. So they ignorantly misunderstood Muhammad Rasulullah. So they buried him rather than try at least to see if his life was still savable. If there is a word like that. So that is the point. I am not making any other point other than that, my dear listeners. I promise you I am not. I have not said do not bury the dead immediately. I dare not. It must be done. That is Muhammad's instruction. What I am saying that we are not doing right in Nigeria is to try and save that life first. Now let's move away from there. Now, doctor explained to me. I now asked him. I went beyond my own line, my discipline. I then asked him that, doctor, as medical doctor, sir, who is likely to come back to life? Then he gave me two categories. He said that the dead that are not likely to come back to death are the ones that have been sick for a very long time. They have been sick. They have undergone, like a terminal disease for a very long time. That if they die in such a case, that it is not likely that they come back to life. So, in that category, we can put the elderly, those who have grown up really very old. Like, there is a friend of mine whose mother is still alive. She's really, aged now. As a matter of fact, I'm sure she's asking that Allah should just take her away by now. But life is no longer enjoyable for her. Right? So, if somebody like that dies right now, obviously, it's not likely that she comes back. But yet, they still must try to see if there is no life in her before they will bury her. Even if it will be obvious that, may Allah forgive me, whenever I go to their house, I ask Allah for her to take her away. She's not enjoying life anymore. Life, she's in pain and she's over 90. She has spent everything, she has enjoyed life and all of that. So, the prayer I do for her is what Muhammad Rasulullah said that we should be doing. The prayer is that, oh Allah, take me away when death is right for me, and keep me alive as long as living is right for me. That's the prayer I say for her. Oh Allah, please take Mama away the moment death is the right thing for her. So I don't pray that she should die right there. No, that's Muhammad's prayer. So now I can give you instances of people like that, people of her age, who died like that, but they came back to life. I can give you instances of those. My wife was telling me one like that in their family. I lived in Medina Estate for a very long time. That man was very elderly. His children, they will hear that he was there. They will travel down to Nigeria. They will get here. The man will come back to life. That happened like 4 or 5 times. When the man eventually died, nobody came around anymore. It was the stench, the smell that made them realize that he was actually dead. So which means we still have that right. The unconsciously have the right over us to ensure, no matter how old they become, we still have to ensure that there is no life in them before we do what? Before we bury them. So I was talking about what the doctor told me. So doctor said that those in that category, he used the word likely, that they are not likely to come back to life. In that category, terminal disease, you have lived for a very long time, longevity, and it is the normal disease that precedes death, that we all can say that, okay, this is the pangs of death and all of that, that they are not likely to come back. Now, he now said that those who are most likely to come back to life are those who die suddenly. That's what doctor told me. That sudden death, nothing is wrong with them. They are lively, they are hale and hearty, they are very healthy, they're living a normal life. They just drop dead suddenly. Doctor said that he used the word most likely. He said it is most likely that people in that category come back to life. Then he now said, I didn't ask him this question, it was him who brought it up himself. I don't want to talk about the mortuary or the whatever, because Islam does not allow that. But he said that for those who are placed in the mortuary and they come back to life, he said in his own opinion, that is as a result of the irresponsibility of some of them medical practitioners. That was what he said. My point now is that medically, in our own era now, we have this new situation. This is the second point I'm going to. I have spoken about the first part. The first part is that whatever happens to anybody around us, if the person looks unconscious to us, we are not certified to certify people dead. We are supposed to take them to the professionals, no matter what it causes. Where I led them in prayer on Friday, when I said all of this, and after the prayer, and Alpha, I would say a supposed Alpha came to me. And he was challenging me. And I want to believe that he just misunderstood me. Because I do not think anybody will challenge what I am talking about. I have my evidence that save their life first. Then when it's evident that they are dead, they go ahead and bury them immediately. Then he was not telling me that, but what if we were on a journey? That they were on a journey and the person becomes dead. I said, so what is your definition of being dead? He said, we all know when somebody is dead. I said, Ustaz, I'm sorry, you were not listening to me, Ustaz. I said, how can you be sure the person is actually dead? He said, Ustaz, everybody knows. I said, okay, let's now assume that your own definition of the person is dead. What would you do? He said, the right thing for us to do is to bury the person so that we can continue our journey. I said, so your reason for burying that person immediately is so you could continue your journey. He said, yes, now, what else can we do? That is the only thing we can do for him at that moment. We can't leave him there. I said, really? So we must understand that it is compulsory for us to save the human life. When we understand that, there's such an affair, and people like him will understand that his journey at that moment will not be as important as saving that person's life anymore. Then he now said that, okay, let's assume that I agree with you. Then I now want to take the person to the hospital. But I do not have the money. What should I do? I said, okay, if you don't have the money, what will you do? The last thing to do is to bury the person like that. Only what if it was you? He kept quiet. So you can see where I'm coming from. I am talking about what we are doing ignorantly. Reasons why it is possible we might have buried some people alive. So he now said, what if I don't have the money? I said, that is the essence of these Islamic organizations. He said, where will I go to? You take the person to the hospital. You look for a mosque and tell them somebody's life is at risk. They should raise the money and save the person's life. He now said, okay, let's now assume that we are able to take the person to the hospital and they said we should bring money. We are able to gather the money, we are able to pay them the money. You are saying that we should not use one hospital. That if he's certified dead in that place, we take him to another hospital. And we are spending all the money we have in one place or another. Are we not going to spend money in another place? I said, so what is important to you now is money you want to spend. It's not saving the person's life. We cannot rule that out. Poverty. Bad governance. These are one of the reasons why all of these things are happening. This will not happen as frequently as it's happening in Nigeria in developed countries. Because in such a case, such an affair, we'll easily call an ambulance, 911, hello 911, there's an issue here. They will arrive immediately. They don't have to spend a penny. So in this adverse case now, I will blame our governance or our government for that. So you see, we have an issue in our hands. So now, I have settled on that. And my conclusion on that is that save the human life, do not end it. It means before you conclude that somebody is dead, ensure you try to save, no matter how old they are, no matter how young they are, no matter how sick they look, take them to the hospital. Let them be certified dead at the hospital. And my advice is that do not use one medical doctor. Use as many as your resources can take you to be sure that they are actually dead. The moment death is evident, you don't have any other excuse anymore than to bury that dead immediately. Now, the second instance. This one, I want to bring it up, and I want our affairs to look into it. It's a new situation in our own time, which did not happen when Rasulullah was alive. And I have given all the examples I will have given in this instance. The instance is, the first one we are talking about is just that the person is now unconscious right now. Then we take them to the hospital, we ascertain they are dead, and we can bury them. But now, the instances where we have mentioned that somebody died in the morning, the person was kept because his family were busy getting some things before they would bury him. And the person woke up, came back to life later in the day. That did not happen while Rasulullah was alive. That's a new situation in our own generation. So there is no hadith on that. It didn't happen during the time of the Sahabas. So there is no hadith on that. The one guy I told you about, my mom's younger sister, has took some days because it happened in an accident. So before they could locate her family, that took some days. So before they could travel to go to identify the body, being wrong case, they had to tell us someone that took some days too. Then, that took some days. That didn't take hours. Then she came back to life. This is a new situation in our own times, in our own days. So the question is that, how do we address these new situations? What is supposed to be done normally is that, we call some people muftis. Muftis are those who are licensed to give fatwa. They have the qualifications to give fatwa. They have the knowledge. I do not even belong to that category at all. So, the muftis who belong to that category, they are supposed to come together normally and address these new situations and come up with a fatwa about it and tell us what to do. Maybe they will tell us that, okay, in this case, in such a case, which doctor has said that it can only happen to sudden death in that area. Maybe whatever it is they want to tell us to do, I don't know. They should come up with something. It's a new situation. Ask around you. Whenever I mention this, by the time I'm done, I know somebody will have an experience somewhere to share. So they need to look into that for us. And I can give you an example of what happened during Muhammad's life, or immediately after his death, and something happened that did not happen while Muhammad was alive. And the Sahabas had to come up with an interpretation. So they came up with a new fatwa that was different from what they were all doing while Muhammad was alive, because it was a new situation. So now we also have a new situation in our own hands that can call for a debate of all our muftis. They should come together and discuss this matter. It's happening all over the world, most especially on underdeveloped countries and developing countries like Nigeria. What happened? In the case of Muhammad Rasulullah and Usman, I will use those two cases only. Before Muhammad Rasulullah died, before he died, the practice then was that as soon as death was ascertained, that corpse or that deceased person will be buried immediately on that very day. And even in Muhammad's time, the dead were buried during the day and even at night. So when somebody died at night, they will bury that person before the following before Salat al-Fajr. So while Muhammad was alive, this hastened to bury the dead. It was the practice, it was the tradition, there was nothing else but that. And that was the only thing that happened all throughout Muhammad's life. So there was no other case other than that. There was no new situation. Now, Muhammad died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A new situation happened. It started with Muhammad Rasulullah. Muhammad died on Monday. Between the morning prayer and Salat al-Zuhr, that was when he died. Between Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Zuhr, that was when he died. Muhammad was not buried until the night of Wednesday. You know, in Islam, the night precedes the day. So when I say the night of Wednesday, in our own understanding, I mean Tuesday's night. He died on Monday between Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Zuhr. The exact time, nobody is sure of that, but between that time, and there is no report of this was the time he died. What Buhari recorded was that Muhammad Rasulullah died between Salat al-Zuhr and Salat al-Zuhr on a Monday. That was after 14 days of sickness. So after that, at least the practice was, before then, practice was very immediately. But in Muhammad's case now, Muhammad was buried, that's about 2 days after. Why? Because of a new situation. Because something that never happened before happened on that day, which was more important than hastening to bury the dead. What was that? That was the case of our faith, of our religion. Remember, I gave you the 5 necessities, the 5 essentials that Sharia must protect. The first of them is the religion of Islam. It takes precedence over the protection of human life. Are we together? So, what happened on that day was that Islam was going to be destabilized. And Muhammad died on that very day. So, if they were to busy themselves with preparing Muhammad for burial and hastening his burial, before they would have finished that, Islam would have, there would have been a civil war, there would have been a lot of acrimonies before they would have finished that. So because of that, they had to attend to a new situation which was more important than burying Muhammad Rasulullah. So by the following day, that situation had been taken care of. A new leader had been appointed for the Muslims. Because without a leader, there would be chaos. So the leadership position was empty. So there was, an uproar, a disagreement about who was to become the leader of the Muslims after Muhammad was alive. So that had to be dealt with. So now, what happened then now became another source of Sharia. It's called Ijma al-Sahaba, the consensus of the companions of Muhammad. It now became a law to us. But my point exactly is that it was a new situation that brought about that. In the case of Usman, Muhammad's companions, He was not buried until after 4 days. After how many days? 4 days. What led to that? Was it that he wanted to disobey Muhammad? No. Than protecting human dignity, which was also the protection of the leadership of the Muslims, of the religion of Islam. They had to attend to that. They had to sort that out. That took them days. So Usman was buried after how many days? 4 days. That was a new situation. And see how they reacted to it. I have not suggested anything in this case. Please don't misunderstand me. I am passing this over to our muftis, those who have the knowledge, to give a fatwa on the fact that in this 21st century, we have a new situation in our hands where people are certified dead, and hours later, days later, they came back to life. What do we do in that instance to ensure that we protect the human life, to ensure that we don't bury our dead alive, to ensure that we follow Muhammad's tradition successfully, which is to bury the dead immediately and not the unconscious? This is all that I want to talk about. Whatever I might have said that wasn't right, may Allah forgive me for it. Whatever I might have said that was right, that Allah is pleased with, He reward me and every one of us. Amen. So now, if we want to contribute, or we have questions, or we want to share our opinion, then the floor is open. Yes, sir. What is that?
When you mentioned, and I was particularly very grateful. The reason I was grateful is that that had been going on in my mind for sure. And I know 5 personal experiences, including somebody extremely close to me, that even to tomorrow, I believe we bury the person alive.
Subhanallah.
Personally, I still believe that we bury that person. And it's a shame that after I learned from you, I heard from you, I went to my imam and I said, you know what? I have something so interesting, and I think we should begin to look at it. We are close to some of the muftis. Can you approach them? Because I know he's very close to muftis. Can you approach them on this issue? And I mentioned, the first thing said, oh, are you going to say that somebody is going to die, except that Allah says he's not dead? I said, no. And I told him my own stories, and this is what I'm going to say. Personal story. When I graduated from university, then when I was in Italy, I was very religious. I'm not even as religious as I was then. I was extremely religious. And I